Today we're going to be talking about the 5 most common mistakes that wide receivers will make. Now the first mistake that I want to go over is something called beating the drum. So a lot of wide receiver coaches, a lot of older school wide receiver coaches taught that when you get to the top of the route, like it's a curl, it's a comeback, whatever it is, where you have to drop your hips to make sure that your feet don't die and you keep your hands and your feet moving, or you keep your feet moving out of the break, they would say beat the drum. So you get into the break, you start to drop your hips, and you have your hands moving like you're playing the drum. So you have all this unnecessary hand movement and feet movement. Now, I think the game has evolved. I think that we can't be taking 6 to 7 steps at the top of the break. So if you hear a wide receiver coach tell you that, I would have it go in one ear and out the other ear. Guys, what gets you out of the break and what keeps your feet moving are your hips and keeping your arms natural. So if I'm running a curl route, I don't want to change up anything. A lot of coaches nowadays, I've seen this as well, when they get to the break, they'll tell their receivers to go dead with their hands because that'll help them stop. And yes, it will help you stop, but your feet also die. Whatever your hands do, your feet are going to follow. So you want to stay natural with your arms. You want the same arms in as out. So you're coming up to here, your hips are what get you into the break, but we are just running in and then running out of the break, so I have that consistent flow of energy. So don't make that mistake of beating the drum. Now also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you guys would like an 8-week daily training schedule that you could follow, check out that very first link in the description below for our ultimate wide receiver training package. It's over 2 months of on-field drills for wide receivers and gym exercises specifically for wide receivers, where we map out Monday you're doing this on the field and in the gym. Tuesday you're doing this on the field and in the gym. We give you the exact sets and reps to follow and a video example of each drill and each exercise. So guys, if you want access to that, check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get back to these mistakes. Now the second mistake that I see a lot of wide receivers do at the top of the route is they will start to like wind up their hands so they start to drop their hips into the break. Now again, guys, a DB, like when he's guarding us man to man, let's say he's sitting in like off man, maybe 7 to 8 yards, and you got to run like maybe like a 7-yard dig where you got to cut in front of him, right? And you're running at him. He's supposed to be watching what on us? He's supposed to be reading my hips, aka my body language. So if I go up to the break and I start to stand really tall and raise up with my chest, that will raise my hips and that tells him a break's coming. But now again, like I said, this is not about the hips of the wide receiver, this is about the hands. If you're running here and your hands start to do this before you cut, and a lot of wide receivers do this subconsciously, they don't even realize that they're winding up to drop their hips down because it's just such a habit that they've built up over time. I highly recommend you filming yourself working any type of break where you have to drop your hips. Curls, comebacks, hitches, digs, maybe the occasional out route where you got to slip under a DB, and a lot of times guys will run up and they wind up. That wind up, guys, if a DB sees you go from this to this, that lets him know a break is coming. So we want to make that DB think we're going vertical the entire time. I want my arms pumping all the way to the break point. Remember guys, trust your hips. Your hands do not play a role in how fast you're going to get in and out of the break. Now the next mistake that wide receivers will make is off the line of scrimmage in press. So remember, we just talked about it when we were discussing off man. A DB in press is going to be watching my hips, but so many times wide receivers, when they're facing a DB, inside shade press, head up press, outside shade press, what they will do, like let's say I'm trying to throw a jab step with my outside foot, they'll just step and they don't actually bring their body with the step. So again guys, if you're doing all this foot movement, head and shoulder movement, but your hips do not move and your hips stay square, you know what a DB is going to do? He's just going to sit there and stand right in front of you, and we're not going to get any separation. We have to sell my releases with my hips, and how you can do that is think about your head being attached to your knee and your foot. So if I'm trying to throw a jab step this way, I want to bring my head with my knee, because you see how much my hips actually turn. If my head stays down the middle and I throw this jab, nothing goes with it. Yes, I'm stepping far, maybe I give a head and shoulder lean, but you got to bring your head with your knee, and that will help you sell your releases more to get a DB to jump, because he's in fact watching our hips. Now the next mistake wide receivers will make has to do with catching. So a lot of times when wide receivers are running over the middle and a quarterback throws the ball with some heat like a bullet pass, you never want to let the football cross your face. That's why so many receivers will have that ball come and it goes through the middle of their hands. So what you ultimately want to do is when you're catching that ball, you want to focus on catching the 4 points of the ball, or the 4 quadrants of the ball. So ball's coming, don't let it cross your face. Catch the front 4 points so it doesn't end up being here. We're not catching the back half of the ball, and that ball won't fly through the middle of my hands. Now also fellas, in 2025, we're going to be coming out to 15 more cities for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. So if you're a QB or wide receiver and want to train with myself and my staff of coaches for 2 days, check out that second link in the description below. We're going to be coming out to San Francisco, Orlando, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona, Charlotte, North Carolina, Austin, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, Seattle, Washington, Las Vegas, Nevada, Newark, New Jersey, Birmingham, Alabama, Houston, Texas, Boston, Massachusetts, Columbus, Ohio, Boise, Idaho, and Los Angeles, California. party. So guys, if you're local to one of those cities or would like to travel out, check out that second link in the description below. We'd love to have you at one of our camps. Now, the next mistake that wide receivers will make has to do with catching a deep ball over the shoulder. So how many of you guys have been running downfield like on a fade ball, deep post, quarterback throws it with some touch and it goes right through the middle of your hands, it almost seems like. Now, the mistake that a lot of receivers will make is that they'll have their hands flipped, they'll be tracking it into that like bucket catch, if you will, but their pinkies are too far apart, and so that's why that ball goes through the middle of their hands. Guys, what we need to do is we want to try to keep my pinkies almost touching, so when that ball is tracked down, it's not going to go through the middle of my hands. I could absorb the catch, put this thing away, and be more successful downfield.